All right, today we're jumping right into one of philosophy's most epic ideas, this concept of a divine tension. It's a theory from Nietzsche that says the secret engine behind, well, everything, all art, all beauty, all meaning, comes from a constant struggle. And this isn't just about some ancient gods. It's really a story about the clash between order and chaos, and how their fight is what creates everything that actually matters.
And this quote, wow, it just sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. It takes this huge philosophical concept and makes it a dramatic, deeply personal choice. Think about it. Are you the person who clings to the safety of the lantern, the light you can control? Or are you drawn to the raw, untamed, maybe even terrifying truth of the storm? Just keep that question in your mind as we go.
So, to understand that choice on the precipice, we first have to meet the two gods at the very heart of this conflict. Their relationship, this kind of primal partnership, and their eternal struggle is what powers all of creation. Let's meet Apollo and Dionysus.
This slide lays it out perfectly. On one side, you've got the Apollonian. This is all about order, clarity, structure. You can think of it as the protective mask that gives our world shape and makes sense of it. But then, on the other side, you have the Dionysian. This is raw, chaotic, ecstatic energy. It's the primal wildness of life itself. It's the abyss that shatters all those nice, neat boundaries.
But here's the absolute key, and you gotta get this part. These two forces aren't just enemies locked in some destructive war. Their conflict is actually productive. This divine tension is like the friction that sparks the creative fire. You see, one force gives you the raw, untamed energy, and the other gives that energy a beautiful form. Without that tension, you get nothing. No art, no growth, no real life.
So how in the world does this tension actually create something beautiful? To really get it, let's look at how creation happens in nature, where, destruction is often the very first step toward new life.
I want you to picture a seed, just buried deep in the frozen ground. It's safe, yeah, it's ordered, but it's also completely stagnant. It's a prisoner in the dark. You could say this is a state of pure but totally lifeless Apollonian order. It's just constrained, waiting for something to happen.
And then, something does happen. From deep inside that seed, this chaotic, wild energy just erupts. This is the Dionysian force coming into play, a vitalizing, divine madness. And this isn't some gentle awakening, okay? It's a violent, internal explosion that is absolutely essential for any kind of real change. And here's the result. That Dionysian madness is what shatters the stagnant hull, the old shell of the seed's former life. The old constraints are completely broken. And it's only then, after that violent shattering, that the seed is finally liberated to grow up toward the light. Chaos wasn't the enemy. It was the necessary ingredient for creation.
Now, this exact same process, this mystical marriage of chaos and order, is what Nietzsche saw at the very heart of tragic art. Just think about the ancient Greek chorus, right? Their wild Dionysian dancing and music express this raw, primal emotion. And then, that chaos was given shape and meaning by the structured Apollonian dialogue of the actors on stage. That's where the magic happens, in that blend.
So, what's the ultimate payoff of mixing these two? Well, it lets us face the abyss. All the suffering and chaos of life, and not be completely destroyed by it. The Apollonian form, the art, makes the horror bearable. It lets us stare directly into the heart of suffering, and instead of feeling despair, we actually find this powerful, primordial joy. It's a truly life-affirming thing.
But this beautiful, productive balance, well, it's incredibly fragile. And into this world walks an antagonist. And this figure isn't holding a paintbrush or a lyre. No, they're holding a cold, iron lantern, and they are determined to extinguish that divine fire. This antagonist has a name: Socratic rationalism. It's basically a worldview that declares war on mystery. It cannot stand chaos or anything that can't be neatly explained away by logic. It's this cold, rigid way of thinking that demands a rational solution for absolutely everything, and it wants to get rid of the tragic and the unknown from our lives entirely. So how does this cold rationalism dismantle that creative engine? Well, first, it just gets rid of the divine tension altogether and replaces it with this singular demand for reason. Then, it extinguishes the creative fire by explaining away all the myths and mysteries. All those beautiful, meaningful forms, what Nietzsche called the redemption in appearance, they get tossed aside for cold, hard proof. And the result? A world that's been stripped of all its magic, leaving it just hollow and weary.
And that brings us right back to where we started. We're standing on that crumbling precipice, facing a fundamental choice. And it's not just about art anymore, is it? It's about how we choose to live.
So, what's it going to be? Will you choose the cold, clear, and supposedly safe light of the lantern, which promises to explain everything away? Or will you choose the terrifying, chaotic, but ultimately vital truth of the storm?
This slide really lays out the stakes. The Socratic path, well, it ultimately kind of devalues life because it's always trying to escape the hard parts, which leads to that hollow, world-weary feeling. But the Dionysian path, that offers what's called a great health, a kind of profound strength that comes from saying yes to all of existence, the beautiful and the terrible, the joy and the suffering, embracing it in its totality.
And this really gets to the core of the whole thing. Suffering isn't an error that needs to be corrected or some problem that needs to be solved. In this worldview, suffering is a sacred and absolutely necessary ingredient. Without it, there's no genuine beauty, there's no profound art, and there's no meaningful growth.
So, the final challenge is this: to stop trying to escape the chaos and instead learn to love our fate. The goal is to restore that divine tension in our own lives, and in doing that, learn to see the entire cosmos, with all of its pain and all of its glory, as what it is, a masterpiece of tragic grandeur.